Qatar's ruler will attend the Gulf Cooperation Council summit today after it was announced Saudi Arabia will reopen its border to the country. It's a major breakthrough in potentially ending the 3-year Gulf crisis between Qatar, Saudi Arabia and 3 additional Arab countries. Borders will be opened as of Monday next week. It's the latest development sought by US officials aimed at building a united front against Iran. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain and Egypt imposed a diplomatic boycott on Qatar in 2017, accusing it of supporting terrorism. Under the new agreement, the blockade will cease and Qatar will drop any legal pursuits. Joining me live now for more on this from Jerusalem is CNN reporter Sam Kiley. Sam, thanks for joining me. Just how significant is the move to reopen the border now and also invite Qatar's leader to the summit?
Well, it's highly significant, particularly for the Qataris, but also, as you said in the introduction there, for a broader coalition to offset the growing tensions across the Arabian or Persian Gulf, as people like to argue about it, in this part of the world with Iran. Now, from the Qatari perspective, this is a very significant breakthrough because it's not yet clear where the United Arab Emirates sits in this debate. They've always taken a rather harder line, a less conciliatory line, really, than the Saudi Arabians on Qatar, wanting to see, in the past, at any rate, Qatar hand over to Egypt a number of members of the Muslim Brotherhood that they allege have sanctuary on the island of Qatar. From the Saudi perspective, though, this is all about getting a crescent of defence against what they see as highly destabilising activity emanating from Iran. The Saudis have been, in their view, victims of Iranian-backed Houthi rebels, particularly in their south. They've also been hit with missiles at their oil facilities that they blame on Iran. And, of course, the Iranians, just in the last 24 hours or so, have announced that they are returning to enriching uranium to 20%, something that they had said that they would do over a month ago. They're now saying they have begun doing that in their underground facilities, and that has provoked here in Israel an angry reiteration of the Israeli position, which is that, in their view, they would never allow the Iranians to develop a nuclear weapons capability. In the background to this, of course, as you know, is that the United States, under Donald Trump, withdrew from the JCPOA, the complicated name for the Iran deal that was struck with a great deal. 12 years of international diplomacy went into that in order to try to get the Iranians to give up the development of their nuclear program in return for lifting of sanctions. Sanctions were reimposed by Donald Trump, putting extreme pressure on the Iranian economy, and as a consequence of that, periodically we've seen a rise in tensions, and this is yet another of those raised tensions, coming, of course, to the anniversary of the killing by the United States of General Soleimani, the leader of the Quds Force of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps in Iraq, with a drone strike on January the 3rd that the Iranians have continued to threaten retaliation for, but have not yet made good on that threat.
And we know that Trump's administrator and son-in-law Jared Kushner recently visited Qatar. What sort of involvement has the Trump administration had in facilitating this, do you think?
They've been very deeply involved. Jared Kushner has been very deeply involved in the normalising efforts between Israel and several Gulf countries, notably United Arab Emirates and the UAE, but down the line there's, also with Oman, equally with Sudan, and perhaps paving the way for normalisation with Saudi Arabia, although that's going to be problematic. So he's deeply involved. He's got very strong relations with a lot of the Gulf leadership, and he was present in the Gulf during the announcement of, or preceding rather, the announcement from the Saudis that the effective blockade against Qatar was being lifted by them in terms of opening the borders with the emirate, the Qatari emirate. And, of course, very significantly, the emir will be travelling to the meeting for the Gulf Cooperation Council later today, the first time in 3 years. So I think the Trump administration has actually been one of the key players in that, because they are in lockstep with the Gulf nations, the Israelis and the US administration in perceiving the Iranians as one, if not the greatest threat to regional and even more wider international stability.